Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Baltimore Community Mediation Center's Peacemaker series, where we interview peacemakers who are doing amazing work in our community. I'm Atul Garg, an AmeriCorps member at the Baltimore Community Mediation Center, where I serve as a prisoner reentry mediator and youth police dialogue facilitator. Today, I'm excited about the opportunity to have a conversation with Debra Hettleman, CEO of the Baltimore-based nonprofit Building Steps. Welcome, Debra, and congratulations on recently celebrating Building Steps' 20th anniversary.
Thank you very much. It was quite a big deal, 20 years in Baltimore.
So even though Building Steps has been around for 20 years, I'm sure there are still some people who are hearing about it for the first time. Can you tell us more about Building Steps' mission and what programs it offers?
I'd be happy to, because the more people who know, the better. So Building Steps, as you said, we just started our 21st cohort of students. The
Great.
mission is to equip our city's brightest students with the tools to propel them to college and career success. Now that is a mouthful, Atul. What that really means is our goal is to get every eligible student in Baltimore City public schools into college and out of college with a degree in hand.
Great, great. And so what, when you talk about your mission and the students that you serve, what sort of programs are we talking about? So if I'm in high school and I'm thinking, gee, what does Building Steps do? What are the next few years of my life in high school and college going to look like? What are some of the services you offer?
Oh, I'm going to say, come with us, young man, because so Baltimore City, unfortunately, we have a very, very low college graduation rate for our high school students. Right now, it's hovering about 8%. And at Building Steps, the college graduation rate is about 80%. So
wow,
that's one way that we
amazing.
get the kids involved is to show them the difference in numbers. But we're very specific. We work with kids who attend our city's more challenged high schools. So we are 15 Baltimore City high schools. And we work with kids who have a GPA of 3.0 or above. And you might go, well, that's of course, that's a no-brainer. All those kids are going to go to college. But in fact, they don't go to college because almost 90% of our students are the first in their family to go to college.
Great.
So if you're the first to go, you may not even know as a threshold issue that you should go or why you should go or how are you going to get there. So we work with about 200 high school students total every year, but 100 of them are high school juniors, and then they progress to be high school seniors. And then we launch them off to college. And when we launch them off to college, we stick with them. So we make sure that as soon as they hit a little speed hump, whether that speed hump is a fight with their roommate, or they didn't get the class that they need, or they lost some funding, whatever it is that happened, we make sure that we can be there to take care of it. So here's the way it works really quickly. When they're juniors, they spend a year. Once a month, they go with us and they go to some place that relies on science and technology. And they're in a place where they can go, I had no idea that people did this for a living, and it's all STEM oriented. As soon as that is over, they get placed in a paid summer internship where they can see coding might sound really cool and you might really like 3D modeling. And then you get there and you're like, after I've worked for 5 weeks, this isn't what I thought it was, but I still like engineering or I still like IT. But they can refine their interest a little bit over the summer. In senior year, everything is about college. How do we get in? How do we choose a school? What do schools look like? We might really like Towson University, but if you want to be an engineer, that might not be the best place for you. But if you want to be a teacher, it's a fantastic place for you. So we talk about that. And we spend senior year getting into college. So we make sure that all the kids have their applications done, their financial aid done. And in May, they push the button and they say, yes, this is where I'm going to school. And we help them do that. And then that's 3 out of our 5 components. Then the 4th is we help them all through college, through College Connect, make sure that they're connected with the resources that they need to graduate. And then they graduate and we stick with them whether they like it or not, because there really is a transition between college and your career. Like, how do you get that first job, and what does your resume look like, and how do you write that thank you note or that lead to get an interview? So that's what we do in a nutshell, 5 components.
Okay, and that's a really comprehensive program. It's not like you just kind of send them off to college. It's like you're there with them through college and even beyond graduation, correct?
Yes, because if we just sent them off to college, I think we would be doing them such a disservice, because unfortunately, the chances of a first generation student graduating across the country, the average is 11%.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Right. So it's not that they can't get in. It's that it doesn't take much to derail a young person. I don't care who you are. It doesn't take much to derail a young person.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get derailed in your first or second year, or even worse, your third year of college, think of the debt that you may have incurred. And then you're left with all kinds of problems, including the emotional of, I can't believe I didn't finish.
Yeah.
So we stick with them through the whole thing. And we actually started a few years ago, we started something called the Young Professional Council, because we have so many kids, they're not kids anymore, they're young adults who have graduated, and they are young professionals now. And they always need, just like you and I, we need networking opportunities. So we now have a Young Professional Council where we hold 4 events a year specifically for them.
Great. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, that's an amazing graduation rate, 80% for college when it's only 8% for Baltimore City. I'm curious, do any of these students go on to graduate school as well?
A third. One-third of our students go on to graduate school.
Amazing.
It is, but it also, it goes to show you, I wish I could say to you, oh, what we do is so high level and it's rocket science and nobody can do it, but it's not, that's not the case. But what it does show you is that with appropriate supports, a high achieving student in Baltimore City, regardless of what school you go to, can be academically and professionally successful. They just need the supports to get there. And I'm not talking about money supports. I'm talking about, who do I call when I can't figure out my financial aid? You know, how do I advocate for myself? How do I talk to a teacher about the circumstances of that late paper?
Yeah, it sounds like they already have the intelligence to kind of get to wherever they want to go. You guys just step in and you kind of say, hey, this is a possibility. Like, look at these STEM careers. And then, hey, we're going to give you the tools to actually get you through the rest of high school, through the rest of college, and if they want to, even through grad school.
Correct.
Great.
And then eventually we'll launch you, but probably not, because as we celebrated our 20th, I reconnected. I already knew where our first year students were, but had conversations with all of them. And it's miraculous to see when you met a kid when they were 16 and now they're 36 years old.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I know, crazy. We won't say what that says about me, but kind of crazy.
Well, we won't talk about that.
But you think about the long-term effect of that. So those students that have graduated and they're now making a living, we have kids that have started nonprofits. They're not kids, sorry, young adults. They have started their nonprofits while they're working. They volunteer on the side. I went and I took books down to the Book Nook one day with my hair in a ponytail and my sweatpants. And one of my students, an alum, was there collecting books, because that's where her passion is, and that's where she volunteers her time. Like, how great is that? We have students who have, they're holding elected office. I mean, if you want to make a difference in the world, really, what better way to do it than through politics and through policy change? So they're making a huge difference in our community, and they're coming back to their community as role models. Baltimore is a short umbilical kind of town. We all come back.
So is that what you were talking about? I know you've mentioned that the nature of Peacemaker work is circular and creates ripple effects within our community. Is that kind of what you're talking about in terms of these students are, after their educations, are coming back to our community and doing all sorts of things that serving as role models for other students?
Exactly. And like you and I talked about, here's, to me, one of the greatest ripple effects, besides the kids where I returned the books and she was volunteering. When I was meeting with our first year students, one of our first year students who was an engineer, highly successful, but didn't find it satisfying or professionally fulfilling. She is a volunteer with the Baltimore Community Mediation Center. And she is the one that introduced me to the organization. And she was so passionate about it that I went to learn more about it. And I am now volunteering for the Community Mediation Center. So not only are they volunteering, but they're bringing more of us into whatever it is they're interested in. So, I mean, that is crazy ridiculous in a positive way. And on the flip side, right? On the flip side of that, the kids that graduated from our program are now hosting our students as summer interns. Or connecting with them professionally. Or we just did a program with our high school juniors. We did a whole workshop, remotely, of course. We had 3 different panels: IT, healthcare, and entrepreneurship and business. And on 2 of the 3 panels, our graduates were the professionals, were one of the professionals on the panel. So they're giving back to building steps.
great. That's wonderful. So you joined Building Steps, I think, in the year 2000 when it started. So I apologize for dating you a little bit here, but you know,
we were friends.
It's 20 years later and you're still here, which I think is pretty remarkable. So for those who might want to follow in your footsteps, can you share kind of how you were called to this type of work? And more importantly, like how were you called to Building Steps?
It's really interesting. When I started this, I had little kids that are now big kids, and I was working in a completely different industry. I was working in real estate development.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I decided at that time I wanted to do something, and I love real estate, and not to debunk anyone who's in it, but I decided at that time I wanted to do something more meaningful.
Yeah.
And this opportunity presented itself. And the irony is, I knew nothing about education, but I knew how to run a small business. So the chairman of the board gave me the opportunity and said, okay, let's not run it as your traditional nonprofit. Let's run it as a small business. And that's how we've run it. We created a model, we tested the model. We didn't go for real funding until we had a model that was worth selling. And only then did we start outside fundraising. So he was very generous in that regard, and is now Matthew Weinberg, and is now chair emeritus of the organization. But the work that we're doing, you go, well, it's 20 years, so isn't it getting kind of stale? No, it doesn't get stale, because kids change every year, needs change every year. Their education that Baltimore City Public Schools provides changes every year. And so it's all new in spite of COVID. I mean, even with COVID, now it's really all new. So we're providing all of this programming, like I talked about the panel last week. We're providing all of our programming remotely. And what we have found is that some of the programming, for example, we just created an online study hall. So every other week, the high schoolers can get together with one of our staff online, and there's a study hall in it. And they're showing up. It's not mandatory. You don't get extra points for coming. There's no candy. You're sitting in front of your, right? Kind of like you and I are doing right now. And they're coming. And so that will stick. Even when we go in person, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later, there are some things that we've learned and we have initiated that will stick beyond COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned COVID. And so I have a question about that. And I mean, as you know, Peacemaker work can be really challenging at times, especially right now. So what sort of self-care practices have you found helpful for yourself and for the students that have helped you get through this past year?
Oh, our poor students. Let's talk about them first, because they're far more important. I don't know how they're holding it together. I really don't. They show up. We meet with them on Wednesday mornings. Wednesday mornings is when they don't have scheduled school time. Because there's so much pressure with school that we don't want to add to that pressure. So we meet with them when they're not in school. And more students, I think, not just Building Steps, across the city, if you're old enough to work, you're probably working more. And if you didn't work before, you're working now. So I think that is a real challenge for our students. And that keeps me up at night. For my staff and for me, I think everyone is exercising a whole lot more, and everyone's walking in their neighborhood a whole lot more, and whatever online challenges, like one of our alum, he does online challenges, physical challenges. He's a physical therapist. And so some of our staff are doing that, and we meet regularly this afternoon, as a matter of fact, and we don't talk about work.
Great.
It's just let me see how everybody is doing. And in times of non-COVID, you could say, I just want to take their temperature, but now that you can't really say that anymore.
So it sounds like you're making it through. The students are making it through. You guys have kind of adapted to what's going on, and things seem to be going pretty well.
We're very lucky that not all of my colleagues, depending on the kind of programming you deliver, not all programming is deliverable remotely. For example, if you're teaching a little kid how to read, way more difficult to teach a little kid how to read in this environment than it is to share with an 11th or 12th grader what does the applied physics lab look like, and what are the opportunities there for you, or let's do a bioluminescence activity with the aquarium, with SciTech, we can do that online. They're old enough that they can focus on it. So we're very fortunate we can continue with programming, and I feel that every day. And I worry about lost learning for the kids. So we're doing everything we can to stem lost learning for the students. So, and the interesting thing is, there's, like I mentioned, the Applied Physics Lab, they're located in Virginia, and under normal circumstances, we could not go there. It's just too far for us to take the kids. We don't travel with the kids more than about 30, 35 minutes.
Okay.
But because it's COVID, you can absolutely, they come to you right here, right on Zoom. Everybody can come to you. So we have volunteers. And then what's fascinating is, through our website, people can, here's my short plug. If you're interested in volunteering, there's a place on our website that learn more information, and you click the button and we'll take care of you. But we have a record number. We've just assigned a staff person to volunteer coordination because we have so many volunteers during COVID, and which is fantastic. And many of them are from outside of Maryland. They might have a connection to Baltimore. They used to live here, their parents live here, whatever it is. And they Googled STEM education Baltimore, and thank goodness they came up with Building Steps. But you can now live in Georgia and tutor a kid in math in Baltimore, because you're both now used to doing it online. You're used to doing everything remotely now, whether we like it or not.
So despite all the downsides, I mean, it's interesting to hear that there are some positives to this, and that, you know, like you said, you can source volunteers literally from all over the country or the world even, to help out right here in Baltimore.
Oh God, I told, if we didn't find the positives, we'd all like never get out of bed, right?
We knew there had to be something there underlying all of this.
There has to be.
And you guys found it.
Yeah, we have to. I think, and our students need it more than ever. You know, I have all these, I'm glad you can't see what my desk looks like, but I have these articles cut out on my desk. And this one, for example, says math skills faltered as classes went virtual. And another one talks, on the top of that page, it talks about how many kids didn't apply for FAFSA during COVID, right? Because maybe they didn't have the help or the resources or the internet, who knows? There's so many reasons. But at Building Steps, none of that is, yes, our kids' math skills did falter. So what did we do? We brought in a volunteer coordinator, one of our staff, and we brought in like 10 new volunteers to help kids with math, which we didn't do before. There was no need before. So we've done that. And last year, because the kids were home from school, 100% of our kids filed a FAFSA, and 94%, I think, 92, you get the idea, 92 or 94% are in college right now on scholarship. Like, our kids didn't take a gap year. Our kids don't have the luxury of a gap year. So they all went to school. So when record numbers of kids across the country took a gap year, ours did not. So they had their funding, they're in school, and they're all still there, which is mind-boggling that they,
well, I'm sure
many transition in a good year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure many of them recognize that, you know, if they're the first in their family to graduate from high school, or maybe the first in their family to graduate from college, that this was their one shot. And so it's like, yeah, maybe it would have been great to be able to take a gap year, but this is their one shot, and they took advantage of it. And they're like, I'm going to school, whether. And
I'm doing it. I'm not letting COVID keep me down.
Yeah.
We sent the kids masks that say they have our Building Steps logo on the corner of them. And one of them took a selfie and said, "This helps me study." Like, all right, whatever it takes.
Whatever gets you through.
Exactly.
So my final question for you, and you sort of touched on this. So if someone does want to get involved with Building Steps, and it could be either as a student applicant, as a volunteer, or maybe even as an employer, what are the first steps?
Those are great avenues. I'm sorry for my dog barking in the background. You know, we have a space on, like I said, on our website for volunteering, and we have volunteers. Volunteers host a junior seminar day, a STEM seminar. They might host a summer intern. They might help a kid with math or any academic, arena. And the other thing that we have volunteers for is we have a whole cadre of volunteers who help our kids write their college essay. So even though you might be taking AP English and you're a great writer, writing a story and writing your college essay are not necessarily the same, or writing a research paper and writing your college essay. So we have tutors that help, advisors really, that help the kids do that. So that's volunteerism. But you can always host a kid at your place of employment for a summer. If you have anything related to STEM, our kids are always looking for placement. And we're very particular because we train our kids, we have professional development for our kids. We are the go-between between the employer. So we want to make sure that the work matches the kid's interests. Nothing worse than a kid who's bored all summer, right?
Yeah.
They really wanted to be in healthcare and now they're sitting in front of a computer doing data entry. No. We don't do that. So there's one way to also to volunteer. And the other thing is we're a small organization. We're 4 full-time, 2 part-time. So if you have some kind of great business skill that you think, you know what, I could really help them with their website, or I could really help them with their development program, or I don't know, whatever. We welcome that kind of help too. We're small. We're open to new ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you're working with an amazing number of students, and so you said you have a fairly small staff.
We have it's a mighty staff.
It's a small but mighty staff. So
it is, and they're very determined. They're very determined every day. So yeah, we're working with upwards of over nearly 500 kids a year between the 200 in high school and the college kids and the alumni council. It's a lot of kids.
Yeah, well, good.
Which is great.
So I mean, it's great because you get to really spend a lot of time with the students, but it would be great to have more people involved so that you could kind of course, get even more attention to each student. So, well, that's wonderful. I've loved chatting with you, Deborah. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you. It was a nice conversation. I love to talk about our students.
And I love hearing about this. I hadn't really heard much about Building Steps before, so I just love, like, everything you've just told me today is just absolutely wonderful to hear. I hope a lot of people will kind of come to the table, whether they're volunteers or as employers, and maybe more student applicants will learn about this program. So anyways, once again, if you'd like to learn more about Building Steps, you can find them online at buildingsteps.org. And if you'd like to learn more about the Baltimore Community Mediation Center, which offers voluntary, confidential, and non-judgmental mediation services at no cost, you can find us at communitymediation.org.